Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the January 21st, 2021 meeting of the Post Falls Urban Renewal Commission. I'd like to welcome you, all of you here. I call the meeting to order at this time and ask Director Fountain to please call the roll.
Thank you. Clemenson?
Here.
Coles?
Here.
Davis?
Here.
Baltzell?
Here.
Carstensen?
Here.
Crosby?
Here.
And Fleshman?
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, and we have a quorum and a full house. That's great. Would you all please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. What a nice morning out there in January. It could be a whole lot worse. It sounds like down the road, before too long, it's going to get that way. Glad to see all of you here. Appreciate that. First on the agenda today is ceremonies, appointments, and announcements, which includes election of officers. And we don't have too many things under that category typically, but every January we elect new officers for the coming year. So we'll do that in a little bit of a modified fashion compared to what we followed in the past, and only because that's what the bylaws said. And apparently I never followed the bylaws, but it still got the job done. But we'll be voting for chairman, vice chairman, and treasurer. All other committee chairmen and committee assignments will be done at a later date after this meeting. Anyway, the very first one is for the position of chairman, and I would entertain a motion to nominate somebody for the commissioner position.
Mr. Chairman, I nominate Jerry Baltzell.
I second it.
Okay. It's you, Larry, that seconded. Okay. Okay, and as opposed to asking for additional nominations, we'll ask for a show of hands and see what we get out of that and see how that turns out. So
I would actually suggest a roll call vote instead of a
roll
show
call?
of hands. Yeah.
Okay, that isn't what it says in the handbook, but I'll go with you. I'll go with whatever you say. That sounds better. Commissioner Crosby has nominated Jerry Baltzell and was seconded by Commissioner Carstensen. Roll call vote, please.
Clemenson?
Aye.
Coles?
Aye.
Davis?
Aye.
Carstensen?
Aye.
Crosby?
Aye.
Fleshman?
Aye.
And Baltzell?
Abstain. Okay, it looks like that got approved, and thank you very much, I guess. So Jerry Baltzell will be the chairman of the commission for 2021. Okay, for vice chairman, I'd entertain a motion to nominate someone for vice chair.
I nominate Commissioner Carstensen.
Okay,
Second.
okay, good. Commissioner Carstensen was nominated by Commissioner Clemenson. Was there a second?
Yes.
Okay, and Colin seconded the motion. No. So we'd take a roll call vote on that, please.
Clemenson?
Aye.
Coles?
Aye.
Davis?
Aye.
Baltzell?
Aye.
Crosby?
Aye.
And Fleshman?
Aye.
100%. Okay, very good. And so everyone was in favor of Commissioner Carstensen to be the vice chair for the coming year. Thank you very much. This isn't taking very long. Okay, the next position would be as treasurer, and I would entertain a motion for a nomination for treasurer.
I would nominate Len Crosby for treasurer.
I'd second that.
Okay, and we got a motion from Commissioner Coles, to nominate Len Crosby as treasurer, and it was seconded by Commissioner Carstensen. Roll call vote, please.
Clemenson?
Aye.
Coles?
Aye.
Davis?
Aye.
Baltzell?
Aye.
Carstensen?
Aye.
And Fleshman?
Aye.
Thank you.
Very good. And another one approved. Congratulations, gentlemen. And thank you for your service all these years in those positions. It's been a while since we've had any new ones, and these old ones are getting old, but I think they do a terrific job. We've got some, to be honest with you, we have a lot of talent on this dais, and I think the future is looking very bright that way. So thank you all. Thanks for being willing to serve and not saying no when you could have said no.
Next year.
And interesting to note, both of them have the same initial, LC.
Yeah.
Okay, moving right along, conflict disclosure. Are there any questions or comments regarding the elections? Okay. Conflict disclosure, this is an opportunity for commissioners to identify any potential conflicts with anything on the scheduled agenda for today. Okay. Seeing none, we'll move into the consent calendar. Director Fountain.
Thank you. Item A in the consent calendar is the commission meeting minutes of December 17th. Item B is the payables for the month totaling $13,377.59. Item C is a bank activity report, which shows total in all funds of $4,155,621.71 and accrued interest for the month of $1,536.79. Item D is the financial reports as of December 31st, which includes the first quarter budget versus the actual. Your approval of the consent calendar this morning will authorize the transfer of $1,536.79 accrued interest to the general fund and transfer to the First Interstate checking account $13,377.59 for the general payables. And I would answer any questions.
Any questions of Director Fountain on the consent calendar? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar as presented.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Very good. Roll call vote, please.
Clemenson,
Aye.
Coles,
Aye.
Davis,
Aye.
Baltzell,
Aye.
Carstensen,
Aye.
Crosby,
Aye.
and Fleshman.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, moving right along. Item 5, committee updates, finance and policy. Commissioner Crosby.
Mr. Chairman, we reviewed the audit, and we also edited and added a few informational items on the management discussion and analysis portion of the audit, having to do primarily with our projected closing dates of future, of current districts, and just a little bit more transparency with regard to the agency's ability to continue to fund the operations of the commission in light of closing those districts and losing the administrative fees that we receive from those districts. We also reviewed the Finance Committee's report, or the financial reports we just approved, and the 3-month budget versus actual. I would comment that there were only 2 variances from the budget. One is, and they're both having to do with timing. One is having to do with dues. We paid our AIC dues in the first quarter, which were $500, and we also had some accrued vacation, which is showing in that column. But they're both just timing issues.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you very much. District review, Commissioner Coles.
I have nothing at this time.
Okay. Okay. Communications, property, and personnel, Commissioner Carstensen.
Diane went through and looked at the website. Excuse me. Last year, we paid Zoe Media $75 a quarter, which includes an hour of support. The cost of new tech with another agency that does this, they go by $13.52 a month. So, but it does not include any support. So we changed over to that one. That will cost $420. Am I right?
For the year.
If I may, we budgeted $420 for the year
Okay.
for the web hosting, and And so we switched over to New Tech as a hosting company because they were the ones that could provide the security licenses, and that was the reason we did the upgrades to the website. So with those, with New Tech and the domain, the costs will be probably just a little over $200 for the fiscal year. And so if I do need any assistance with the website, which I rarely ever do, we could just pay for that at an hourly fee.
Okay.
So.
But we have a savings of $221.42
Right.
by going this way. So it's already been done.
That has been done.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we'll have to have more discussion on the website with the committee, this year, because there are some issues with it being outdated. Mm-hmm. Even though the upgrades upgraded it so we could get a security license, it's still outdated.
Yeah,
So.
doesn't take long. It seems to change overnight. At least on my computer it does.
Yeah.
So.
So that's where we're at. You got any questions? We'll ask Diane.
Okay, all good? Thank you all for the committee updates. Appreciate that. The updates came from the commissioner chairman of the committees, and I would like to ask them to consider extending through 2021 as part of their duties, and we'll scramble up or whatever you want to do with committee members of each committee in case somebody wants to make a change or whatever. But I think you all have done a good job, kept us abreast with what needed to happen and be aware of. So thank you very much for that extra service. There is one committee that I would like to continue this year as well, and that is the Legislative Committee. It was chaired by Commissioner Crosby. I don't know if you did that all yourself with Diane's help, or did you have anyone else on the committee?
I think Diane and I were a committee of two.
Okay, I was just wondering if anybody else on the board here would like to participate with him. And basically what that does is kind of keeps an eye on what's going on down in Boise on the legislative area that would have any impact on urban renewal for the coming year. So if anybody has interest in doing that, why don't you just go ahead and let Len know and Diane know. And
You can be chairman.
okay, all right, let's move right on. Thanks for those updates. Citizen comments. This section of the agenda is reserved for citizens wishing to address the commission regarding an agency-related issue. Comments related to future public hearings should be held for that public hearing. Persons wishing to speak will have 5 minutes. Do we have anyone out there that would like to make a citizen comment? Other than you're going to make some big ones here shortly. You okay? Okay, very good. Moving on. Unfinished business.
We have the fiscal 2020 audit presentation, and Brian Scholl from Anderson Brothers will present that. He was in my office, and we went through the audit. He did a fantastic job, and so he will present that to you. And I handed everybody a copy of it.
Yes.
It's by them.
Right.
You did.
And so if there's no other unfinished business, we'll move right into new business.
Sorry.
That's okay. So so Brian, I think we're ready for you. This is Brian Scholl from Anderson Company, Anderson Brothers, I guess is the correct term.
Yep. I've took the transition from Lee this year, Lee Anderson, who had traditionally or historically done the audit. And so I transitioned from him, but he kind of stayed in the background, which has kind of been his role these days, client service. And so we have multiple layers of review on these financial statements and audits that we perform. And so he performed the reviews of one of those roles, I guess, in the back.
Okay,
So.
thank you for being here, and we'll look forward to hearing your.
Okay, well, I've got a little bit here on the electronic version, but of course my notes are on paper, so I'll try to be as seamless as possible. So I guess what I'd envisioned is coming and presenting the results of the audit, going over some prepared items, walking through the financial statements, hitting some highlights, and maybe some items that I think might be important to communicate, and then being here for any questions or anything that may come up. And so feel free, obviously, to interrupt as we go, or if you want to do it at the end, whatever works, whatever works for you. So.
Yep, I'd like to have you focus on any concerns you might have, and as well as any positive comments regarding how we're doing.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Okay, so here's where I generally like to start is on the bound packet of the financials, going to page 1, which is about 3 pages back, which is the auditor's report with our letterhead. So I know you're not following along on the screen, so I'll just put it up like that so I can see it. But out of this whole packet, of course, one of the non-audit services we do is we prepare the financial statements. We take your numbers and put them in the format of generally accepted accounting standards. And so, but the one piece that really just comes from us here is the 2 letters within this packet with our letterhead on them. And so the independent auditor's report, just a high view of this. It goes through, I'm just going to walk right through the letter here. Management's responsibility for the financial statement. So management is responsible for the presentation and preparation of these financial numbers. Our role, the auditor's responsibility, our role as auditors is to come in as an independent party to perform an audit in accordance with government auditing standards and generally accepted auditing standards, and give our professional opinion on whether these financial statements are free of material misstatement. And then from there, our professional opinion is on the next page, page 2, under opinions. And consistent with prior years, we issued what's called an unmodified opinion or a clean opinion on the audit. So what we're saying is, based on our audit, these financial statements are free of material misstatement, which is the highest form of opinion that we can give as CPAs based on our audits. And so one of the things I do want to point out, it's in the auditor's report when they talk about internal control. But what I'd like to point out is something that we have conversations about every year, I know, with the audit and with the commission, is because it's a one-person, one-employee organization, there's an emphasis on the role of the commission and the commissioners in the internal control process. And so as part of our audit, we look at what role Diane has as the director. We look at what role the commissioners have in reviewing the transactions, what kind of access they have, and we have conversations with the commissioners. But we discuss, do they feel like they have adequate access to review the transactions? Do they approve the transactions and things like that? And that is really because the segregation of duties within the employee portion of the organization is difficult. I think the agency does a great job of doing this. And part of our audit, or a big part of our audit actually, is going through the actual reports and through the transactions that are approved by the commission as a layer of approval. So that's one thing I just wanted to emphasize and say that that's something that we look at as auditors, and it's important. And I feel like the organization, the tone at the top is really good. Even the questions I think that come, and the requests on some of these cleared checks that come directly from the bank, can we get them in a more readable format? Can we, anything that'll help make sure that your eyeballs are watching? And I think the agency did a great job on that. So, and so as we go through, and I know you've all reviewed this and proposed changes. Sorry, I just hit the hot area for the mic. Can you all hear me okay without? So the structure of the governmental financial statements are, there's the prescribed format, and then there's also the MD&A, which I always point out where the MD&A really is structured for the way I would look, or maybe a banker would look at these financials when we look at them. We want to look at comparative numbers to the prior year, which are shown here on page 3, sorry. Let's see here. management's discussion analysis, and this is something that we don't assist in the preparation of. We just put it in, make sure the information is consistent with our audited numbers. And so as you walk through here, a couple of things I did want to point out that I think are important on the MD&A. Of course, the comparative information, which I think is always important. And you go through, and it talks about the overall layout of the financial statements, the overview, the comparative data. But I think for your organization, an important piece is on page 7 of the financial statements, which talks about, right in the middle of the page, its current fund balances are allocated as follows. Obviously, being on a budgetary, sorry, I'm trying to get down there on the electronic format, kind of stumbling around here. So one of the things we look at are the reserves, what is committed of the current resources and cash of the organization, and this summarizes it right here on page 7. I think that's important to point out. And then if you go down to page 8, this gives an overall economic factors and conditions consideration. This gives a good overview of the organization and things that are directly, items that are directly affecting the organization from a financial standpoint, which is the new employers coming into town, the annual administration fee, which is a big item this year, going from $16,000 to $25,000 per renewal district, and then the strengthening of internal controls. So I just wanted to point that out as one of the highlights there. And then, let's see here. And then if you want to go to page 10, which is the statement of net position, this is probably different than what you're getting on a monthly basis, because this is on the full accrual, which shows your debt. This is similar to what you'd see on a private organization, where all your long-term assets, your long-term liabilities, and everything's on the full accrual basis of accounting. And what I wanted to point out here too, which because this shows the debt of the organization, when you look at one of the items I always like to point out and analyze is your liquid assets, but your assets, your liabilities, and then your net position, which is the equity piece, and how that looks this year in one snapshot in time on September 30th, but also how it compares to prior years. And so this year, if you look, your net position is $3.2 million. On assets of $6.1 million, which is about a 61%, 61% of your assets of the organization are owned outright, which is the primarily cash for you. In maybe bankers' terms or traditional terms, it would be a debt-to-equity ratio of 0.65, which means lower the better. Below 1 is definitely in the healthy area. And so at 0.665, that's a good ratio there. And then your equity, it's $3.7 million this year. It was 1.2 last year, and then it was a negative, rounded to 1 million the year before. And it's all how that debt. These, as you know, the urban renewal agencies are a little bit different when it comes to metrics, because oftentimes you'll have debt and no assets to show for it. On an ordinary business, generally the debt is offset by the assets, and so equity can flip to negative pretty quick here. So, but it's getting healthier with the cash flows coming in each year and paying off that debt, building up the cash. And then, so one of the things I did want to point to is page 12, which is your balance sheet on the modified accrual. It doesn't show the debt. So it has the equity went up because the loan is not on there. But really, if you look at the fund balances, I'm going to go down to page 12. There's fund balance of $6 million on total assets of $6.1 million. I'd say whatever metric you're using, that's a healthy area. And one of the conversations I did have with Commissioner Crosby is he wanted to at least do a kind of a brief comparison to some of the other urban renewal agencies, which of course are difficult. And I've done many of these presentations in the past, and one of the items that comes up probably at least half the time is what's the right amount of reserve or fund balance for our organization? And of course, I love giving the answer, which is it depends, which I know everybody loves. What I did is I put a little analysis together compared to 3 other urban renewals that we performed the audit of. And all of them, they all have different characteristics. Some have loans, some don't, which makes a big difference, like I said, with loans and no assets on your books. But I did a little analysis and comparison. And what I put down is I did a comparison of, on these financial statements you see here on page 12, on fund balance, Post Falls Urban Renewal has net assets of equity basically of 99% of assets. And I also did it as a comparison of revenues, equity as a comparison of revenues, which is 108%. Both of those point to a healthy indicator. The other urban renewals, as a percent of assets, where you're at 99%, one of them was 100%, one of them was at 92%, and one of them was 100%. So very comparative there. When you add in the debt, because some have debt and some don't, it really flips all over the place and it's not real meaningful. But if you do want to have more conversations or more information on that, I'd love to share it. I know it's public information, but I'll probably just hide the names and give the characteristics of the organizations. But
Excuse me if I could just add a comment, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but if you have no assets but you have debt, it's usually because the debt is investment into projects for the community, which is the reason why we're here.
Yep.
As opposed to agencies that actually do have debt and they have hard ground that they're working with, that they've bought for investment or whatever.
Right.
But our investment is into the community and developments for economic growth.
That's a great clarification. That's probably something I should have pointed out too, where it's not as if this debt was taken on for no reason. It was to support the mission of the organization. And it just kind of throws the metrics into a different category because you don't factor in those on there. But yeah, that's a great point. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, I sometimes I get abbreviated up here and I don't talk about that piece of it, but absolutely.
That's
yeah,
okay.
It's to support the organization, and not only that, generally those come back in the tax increment revenues too to pay that off. So
Thank you.
yep. Okay, and so if you go to page 12, or we're still on page 12, this is the summary here of the fund balances and how it breaks down. The overwhelming asset is cash at about 5.7 million, cash and cash equivalents in the LGIP. And then this is how it's restricted and committed down there. At the bottom you'll see. The largest amount is assigned to the East Post Falls. So wanted to point that out. And then one item, of course, these are followed by the footnotes that have some really good information, some background on these financial statements. But I'd say the one item back in the footnotes to, as an independent party looking at these financials, is on page 23. The one where it says long-term obligations and commitments. It goes on to page 24 as well. This just gives an overview of each renewal district, the initial commitment, the to-date commitments, and the balances. Each renewal district has a paragraph summarizing the information here. And
Nice.
So that's one piece that we focus in on when we're performing the audit. But I know as the commission and management, this is the heart of the organization, obviously, of these renewal districts. So
Thank you. That's
it's an
important.
overview there. So, and then the last piece I was going to mention is there's one more auditor's report in the very back. It's the last 2 pages of your packet on page 35 there. And so what this is it's another, obviously, a report from us where, because we're performing the audit in accordance with government auditing standards, there's additional requirements on our piece, but one of them is the issuance of this report. And so this is a report that summarizes that basically said, in planning and performing our audit, we considered your internal controls. We're not giving an affirmative opinion on the effectiveness of the controls, but we basically give statements that we considered your controls, and that was a piece of our audit, and that we didn't find any material weaknesses in your controls. So as far as CPAs, that is that's what we can say about your controls without performing a full control audit. So I will say, just maybe in closing, and then feel free to ask any questions, is that one of the things we look at, because we're coming in and putting our name and my name on the audits, one of the things we look at are the controls and the tone at the top of the organizations, the organization of management, and those are two items that we really consider. And I would like to give compliments to the involvement of the commission in reviewing and having access, and then also the organization and timeliness of the financial information from Diane as management. So,
Good.
are there
Thank
any
you very much.
questions?
Thank you. Any questions or comments?
Brian, could you just kind of explain the fair market value of the state
Yes.
pool that we added this year?
So the Idaho State LGIP, Local Government Investment Pool, is where you have, I believe at the end of the year, 5.7 million invested in there. Anyway, as part of that, it's pretty much a fund that obviously earns you interest, but then there's also a fair market value factor where the monies that are invested in there go up in value each year. And in the past, it's a pretty small amount relative to the overall financial statements. And so in the past, that hasn't been recorded on the actual general ledger just because it's been small. It's a fair value factor that they give. But as your cash balance in that account has been growing over the years, the amount is becoming more material compared to the financials. And so we recommended that be recorded going forward. And it'll pretty much generally in our clients, it'll be something that'll be recorded on an annual basis. You can do it quarterly, whatever you feel like as an organization. But I believe this year it was 22,000 or right around 20,000 that.
Yeah, 22,000.
22,000. In the past, like I said, it was small, so we just kind of said, well, we're going to pass on that. It doesn't affect the materiality of the financials. But because it's creeping up there as the cash balance is getting higher, which is a good thing, then we started recording that.
And this
So
is part
essentially
of
that's
note
a-
2
that's a-
on page 21 and 22.
I'm sorry. We stepped on each other there, I think. So-
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Lynn.
No, I just said that discussion in the audit is in note 2 under state investment pool on pages 21 and 22. Sorry, Eric.
Okay. Just a quick question. That increase in fair market, that's analogous to a capital appreciation
Yep.
type of a thing? Okay.
Yep. And I believe this year's amount was, off the top of my head, I feel like 9,000 or something. Like it had appreciated maybe 10,000 cumulatively through last year. This year, obviously with the cash balance being higher, it was another 10. And it's like, well, at this point, let's start recording that. So.
Excellent. Any other questions or comments? I would just like to say that we feel very fortunate to have the quality of people sitting here and there that work on our stuff. And we have a lot of banking background and a number of different people and leadership positions in current and former employment in different ways, but all financial related. Diane certainly has done a terrific job for us. Len Crosby, our treasurer, is a great financial leader, but he's got Eric and I think Christy, a business owner and government person, and other people who have been at really high leadership positions in the community, and that former commissioner and longtime business owner. You just can't get that very often, where you've got such a good cross section of people that understand financing and are not afraid to speak up and ask questions. And So I just feel the city of Post Falls is fortunate to have the quality of the staff on the commission and the staff that work for us with our attorney and with our executive director. So, but we appreciate the report. It's refreshing to see it, and to be honest, we wouldn't expect anything different, because that's the level at which we try to perform and be involved. And,
Yeah, that shows the tone at the top for sure coming into.
It hasn't always been this way. Years ago, it was, boy, just be lucky that you got a report, let alone, some positive things. And so that's good. I think we can all be proud of all of that. And thank you for your report, Brian. And
Thank you.
And if there are no other questions, I appreciate your being here today.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay. One of the things we need to do as an action item, now that we have new elected officers, and I don't know if we need to, I guess we do, we have to authorize the new officers who are actually old officers.
Chairman, we should actually first we should have a motion to accept the fiscal year 2020 audit.
Okay, all right, sure. Sorry.
Mr. Chairman, I'd make a motion to accept the audit as presented, both in this presentation and in writing.
Okay, very good. Second?
Second.
Okay, good. Do we need a roll call vote on that?
Voice vote's fine.
Voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Okay. Authorization for newly elected officers to be designated signers. We'll need a motion to approve that for myself and Commissioner Carstensen and Commissioner Crosby to be authorized signers for the coming year. We change that every year if and when the leadership changes. So I entertain an authorization.
Move to continue the authorization of newly elected officers to be designated signers.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there a second?
A second.
Okay, second.
Chairman Baltzell, can I add that it includes an authorization for the executive director to have access to the balances of those accounts?
Yes.
Yeah, oh, yeah, and you have to do that every year too, I guess. Yeah, okay.
Thank you, Don.
We'll modify that if it's okay. So we've got it moved and seconded to authorize designated signers. Roll call vote, please.
Sorry. Fleshman?
Aye.
Crosby?
Aye.
Carstensen?
Aye.
Baltzell?
Aye.
Davis?
Aye.
Coles?
Aye.
And Clemenson?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, motion carried. Okay, next on the agenda is our 2020 annual presentation that's been prepared by Director Fountain. Take it away.
So, don't have to worry about sharing your screen. Okay, so just, thank you. There we go. There it is. Sorry about that. A public notice was published in the Coeur d'Alene Press on January 7th to solicit comments on the annual report, and no letters of comment were received. The report will be submitted to City Council after Commission approval. The annual report is required by Idaho Code 5020 to be presented by March 31st each year. The agency was created in 1991, and our office is located upstairs in the Chamber Building. 2020 officers were Jerry Baltzell, Larry Carstensen, and Len Crosby. Monthly commission meetings are held on the third Thursday of each month. Most of the agency's activities fall under the following committees: Finance and Policy, District Review, and Communication, Property, and Personnel, which meet as necessary. And our workshops are scheduled on an as-needed basis. Our mission statement is to encourage sound economic and community improvement that enhances the overall quality of life in Post Falls by providing and improving infrastructure, attracting jobs, and enhancing citizen safety and health. Here's a map slide of our current urban renewal districts. Let me see if I can figure this out. The Center Point, Expo, West Saltese, Tullamore, and Post Falls Technology districts all have proponent developers who build public infrastructure and pay for it up front. The risk lies solely on them to bring in new businesses, which creates increased property values and tax increment, and the increment collected by the county is remitted to the agency on a monthly basis, and the agency reimburses the proponents twice a year in February and in August with the increment that's received. Increment being collected in the East Post Falls, South, and Central districts is funding sewer improvements, as well as repaying the Greensferry Overpass loan, which at the end of 2020 was slightly over $2.2 million. We had another closure in 2020. The agency closed the West Saltese 2 district in August. The proponent of that district was Greenstone Kootenai. The total approved infrastructure was $1.9 million. That amount was paid off in August, which allowed us to close the district and return over $67,000 back to the taxing entities. And the effect of the West Saltese closure added $33.7 million in new development value that was available for the taxing entities to take on their fiscal 2021 budgets. So this slide shows the amounts that were available to each of those taxing districts. It was a total of $342,000 that goes back onto the tax rolls. This slide shows the total approved infrastructure costs in each district and the remaining obligation at December 31st. In the Expo district, the total approved infrastructure costs are $4.4 million. The remaining obligation is $914,000. In the Centerpoint district, total approved infrastructure, $10 million, and the remaining obligation is $590,000. In the East Post Falls district, we've approved $18.7 million of approved infrastructure, and the remaining obligation is $5.1 million. The agency rebated over $5.4 million back to taxing entities from the East Post Falls district when there were no major projects being funded. So we were able to rebate those monies back in 2009 and 2012. In the Tullamore district, the approved infrastructure is $6.4 million with a remaining obligation of $1.8 million. Tullamore Commons 2, total approved infrastructure $325,000, and the remaining obligation is $171,000. I put the Post Falls Technology District in there. We do not have any approved infrastructure within that district at this time, so there's no information on it. This slide shows a 3-year comparison of tax increment that's received by each of their urban renewal districts. The increment received in 2020 increased approximately 23% from the previous year, and this is due to an increase in property values and new construction within our districts. Our orders of approval: once a proponent completes public infrastructure and they are dedicated to the city, the eligible construction costs are approved by the agency and added to their district obligation. In March, $737,995 was approved in the Expo District for Jacqueline Road Extension, and in December, $573,947 was approved in the Centerpoint District for the extension of Expo Parkway. These orders of approval added just over $1.3 million to the district obligations in 2020. Our financial highlights are on the agency's annual audit, which we just went through. The increment received increased due to development occurring in our districts. Interest revenues decreased due to the declining interest rates. Our cash has increased but the agency is funding sewer projects in the East Post Falls District, which will be completed this spring and will significantly reduce that amount in 2021. Our loan liabilities decreased as the agency continues to aggressively pay down the loan at Washington Trust Bank, which requires that 10% loan reserve. The reserve balance is reviewed once a year in November, and the agency was able to apply $94,000 to the principal of that loan for 2020. Our proponent obligations decrease due to the payments made to our district proponents for the public infrastructure. And our actual operating costs were $53,000 less than budgeted. The agency funded over $2 million for sewer improvements in the East Post Falls District, and it is anticipated that we will fund another $4 million in 2021 to complete sewer improvements along Highway 41, which includes a lift station and EQ basin on 12th Avenue. I was only able to take one picture this year. UPS built a new facility on the corner of Expo Parkway and Beck Road out in the Centerpoint District. Construction on that facility began in June. I have a progress picture in August. Oops. And that facility was opened in October. As districts close, this table shows the amounts that will go back to the taxing entities and the taxpayer. The numbers are based on 2020 levy rates and increment revenues, which are subject to change when the districts actually close. So as you can see from this recap slide, when the Urban Renewal Agency has completed our job, a huge amount of new development tax increment will be returned to the taxing entities and the taxpayer, not only the year the district closes, but every year in the future. This is a huge benefit to each of the taxing entities and to each and every taxpayer, over $3.6 million over the next couple of years. We welcomed Christy Fleshman to the Urban Renewal Commission in April. In August, we closed the 4th Urban Renewal District in Post Falls, the West Southeast 2 District. And looking to the future, we are working closely with the City of Post Falls to create 2 new districts. As you can see, that most of our districts are going to be closed, and a new downtown district and a district off of Pleasant View. Again, I would like to stress that urban renewal and tax increment financing are the most significant tools available for attracting businesses and economic development, promoting job creation, and encouraging development of blighted and underutilized areas. And I would answer any questions.
Thank you so much. That was a really good report, and thank you for putting it together. It's very easy to follow for maybe people that aren't fully understand urban renewal, and it shows the bottom lines the way it should, and it's not overstated for sure. I think it's right on track with what's really happening. That's what we're trying to show. Comments, anybody?
Great job, Diane.
Thank you.
And you'll be presenting that at the next city council meeting?
I think this year I'm just going to submit it to the city council. With all the COVID and the way that we're having to do meetings and stuff like that, I'll talk to Shelley about that, but I believe I'll just submit the report to City Council, and then we put a notice in the paper that that's been done.
Yes, statute just requires it to be filed with the city, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Your comments along the way with all of that, explanations, I think is helpful, not in just looking at numbers, but what does that mean to stand for?
Right.
You know, so I think really good job on that.
If just one comment, if we're going to submit the report in this format to the chamber, to the council, I would suggest that we type up your comments associated with each slide so that they can look at the slide and read the comments.
Okay.
Rather than hearing it as they normally do.
Right, and they'd have plain language to look at to be the explanation. That's a
right,
good
and I might be able to zoom into that meeting also and just present it that way. So
Sure.
It would be basically what we just did. So
Okay. Any other questions or comments from commission? So we need to approve the presentation as prepared and authorize Diane to take forward to the city. So
Move to approve the 2020 annual presentation.
okay, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
There's several seconds. Okay. Any further discussion? And I think we should probably have a roll call vote on that.
Sure.
Fleshman,
Aye.
Crosby,
Aye.
Carstensen,
Aye.
Waltzell,
Aye.
Davis,
Aye.
Coles,
Aye.
and Clemenson.
Aye.
Thank you.
Very good. Staff report and updates. Anything beyond what we've already covered today?
Well, I did hand out the yearly conflict of interest
Right.
letters, and then once you guys get those back to me, I'll submit them to the mayor. I just wanted to talk about some of the activity that's going on in our districts out in Expo. They're starting to get a lot of activity out there. Kenworth Truck is starting construction on a building, and then a tractor trailer company is looking at a parcel out there. And there will be a storage unit along Creative Way. And in the technology district, I just talked to Jerry Dicker yesterday. He said they're actively working with 2 projects within the tech park, which will probably, maybe both of them will use the railroad. So then he'll be contacting the railroad and working that out. And he's also working with Ross Point Water District for the location of the water tower out there and the well that needs to go in. So I think that after Highway 41 construction is mostly complete, we'll see a lot of activity in the tech park and in the shopping center on the east side of the highway. So, and then right before our meeting, I got a call from the Centerpoint District. I thought he was going to send me information on that, but I haven't got it yet, sorry. But evidently they have a lot of activity out there also. There's a building going in right by Cisco, and he said that there's a couple of other gas stations that want to go in by Maverick. And there's interest in an RV park out in the Centerpoint District out by Cabela's. So I think we'll see a lot of activity. That district closes in 2022, so we'll see what this year brings.
Yeah, that's great.
Probably lots more pictures.
That's outstanding information. It's just
Well, with
take
everything
one
that's happened, it's amazing that North Idaho, we've been so lucky, and it hasn't slowed down construction here. So,
Yeah. Funny thing is with Centerpoint and that whole area out there sat vacant almost, except for Cabela's and Walmart in such a long time, and then all of a sudden, pew.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's terrific information and updates. Okay, anything else on the staff report?
No.
Okay, commissioner comments? Oops, sorry.
One,
Colin?
and it's just a question, due to this pandemic we've gone through this past year, and with ongoing pandemic things going on, would it be helpful for us to look at our local economy and the local businesses and consider what urban renewal could do, if anything, to bolster any industries or businesses that are really hurting that may not be able to get some type of relief? Something to consider.
Do you have any suggestions about what they could consist of? I think certainly.
I don't know. I just wondered if that would be, I mean, it sounds like it falls within the types of things that we would be looking at. I mean, securing our local businesses that we might be might be losing because of pandemic related things. Mm-hmm. Is there anything we could do? I don't know.
Yeah, certainly something we can keep our eyes and ears open.
I think we'd have to look carefully at the legislation and get advice from council. Obviously, if they were expanding or if they needed infrastructure support or something of that nature, I don't know that we could do something like the PPE grants or
Right.
that is sort of outside the range of using tax increment. But I'm sure Pete can take a close look at that and see what we can do.
Yeah, I was
Yeah,
just
it
thinking,
really depends on the language of the plans,
Yeah, it does.
which a lot of them are very broad, but we'd have to get some specifics hammered out, and I'd have to look at the language in the plans, the statutes, see what we could do. Loans would be a bad idea, though, loans, because we can't be doing loans.
Most of our districts that have existing businesses in them have such a short term, we couldn't really forecast repayment. So
Exactly.
that would be difficult to justify feasibility.
I was just thinking about preventing loss of jobs,
Sure.
equally important to creating new jobs, so. But I don't know what we can do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think you're seeing a movement in the legislature to end a lot of the stay home and in the emergency declaration that's been in place since March and some of those things. And we're seeing additional, because of the emergency declaration is in place, we're seeing additional federal money continuing to come in, and we'll probably see more stimulus money in the next round of stimulus legislation that's being considered at the federal level, too.
Okay, good suggestion. I don't want to close out any thought processes there. Let's keep our eyes and ears and minds open to you never know what'll show up, and it's like, be prepared to help. So thank you for that piece. No other commissioner comments at this time? Okay, I guess the last one might be me. It is. Anyway, I've already talked a little bit earlier about this, but I can't say enough about the work that all of you, including our staff and Diane and Pete and all of you have done in putting your input in and being available, and whether it's on Zoom or whether it's a phone call in or physically being here, and you're all busy and have a lot of things going on, and just taking your time to be here and be a party in that. Christy, I hope you're enjoying being a part of this too, and
I am.
glad to have you here. And I'm very optimistic about the coming year with the vaccines coming out, and I think that is going to go well. There's a really strong effort on behalf of the new administration to try to change the tone of the communities towards each other and towards the government, and not necessarily on one side or the other, but it certainly was, the last couple of days have been very uplifting, and we need that in our community. And so we just need to all work at that and keep the value and success of our country and our people in our prayers, and be able to move forward and have a really strong 2021 and beyond. So if we don't start and do it at this level, it'll never get there. So thank you all very much, and I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Okay, moved and seconded. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. We're adjourned.